All right, hello. Welcome to my channel. I do educational stuff on this channel, and today is the 139th video that we've done on the reciprocal system of theory. And this system of theory was invented by Dewey B. Larson in the 20th century up until his death in 1990, and it carries forward now under several other people who are, including me, who are working on keeping the theory out there and making, innovations and advances on the theory. Dewey B. Larson is the originator, and he died back in 1990. But he put out many books, and we're looking at one of his books called Nothing But Motion. This came out in 1979, and it was the first of three books in his Structure of the Physical Universe, I guess, 3-volume series. This is a second edition. And this book is primarily on physics and organic chemistry, but he plugs in his theory into many, many other subjects over the course of his career. We've looked at a few of those, and we've also looked at some of his biographical information and looked at his deductive development of the reciprocal system, and, just kind of some of the things that are going on in the background. The reciprocal system of theory is a little bit hard, but it's mainly hard because you have to unlearn stuff that you already learned by the legacy science. And there's just a few different concepts that are difficult to suss out. Larson is as you will see, he's a good writer, but he's very dry, and he is a little bit understated sometimes. But the information is all there, and you can get it out. But it's and he also did make a few mistakes with his theory. Now, what he would say is, the theory itself is correct. Whether I have applied the theory correctly in all cases is a different matter. And I'm sure that I've made some mistakes. But those mistakes should kind of come out in the wash. Eventually, people will be able to notice the mistakes, because the reciprocal system is kind of like it's self-checking. And so if one thing doesn't fit, it'll eventually become apparent. It'll stick out like a sore thumb. And that, I think, has proven to be true. Some of his followers, Dr. Bruce Perret, Dr. KVK Nehru, have made some, I think, very, very valuable changes to the reciprocal system and have moved it forward. Unfortunately, there is also, the orthodox Larsonians who refuse to budge from Larson's original positions, and there are also a lot of speculators out there who are willing to just kind of not even learn Larson before they start changing him. So there's kind of a happy medium there. I think Dr. Bruce Perret rides the line of that a lot of the times. Sometimes he gets into some speculative stuff, but he definitely knows his Larson. So, so you can feel at least a little bit confident with that. But unfortunately, Dr. Perret also died back in 2020. So there are very, very few people who give a damn about this theory right now. But if they actually knew what they were getting into, they would give a damn. I'll definitely tell you that. And that's why I'm putting out these videos, because this is a very important theory. It really it's really liberating, because it allows you as a layperson to do science for yourself and no longer have to be dependent upon the guys in the white lab coats to tell you what you should believe and what is, true about science. Not only science, but any subject. The reciprocal system of theory provides answers for any subject if you understand how the system works and you apply it properly. Not an easy task, but doable. Now, the basic idea behind the reciprocal system is that we live in a universe of motion, not a universe of matter, not a universe of energy, but a universe of motion. And motion, matter and energy in general are basically just specific kinds of emotion, along with just about any other kind of scientific phenomena that you can think of. These are all different forms of motion. Now, the ramifications of that are very striking, and Larson gets into much of that. We're looking at chapter 2 here, and he had just got done talking about how to plug in his premises. What he does is he starts with these postulates, two postulates. The first is that, the universe is made out of motion. Motion is the relationship between space and time. Space and time are discrete, come in discrete units, and they are three-dimensional. Reciprocals of one another. They're inverses of one another. And then the second postulate is that the universe conforms to the principles of ordinary mathematics, and the magnitudes are absolute, and the geometry is Euclidean. That Euclidean geometry is something that was taken to task by Bruce Perret, and he has changed that to the geometry is projective, of which Euclidean is a small subset. Be that as it may, those are the two fundamental postulates that Larson put forward, and then he takes those postulates and through a process of deduction, if this, then that, and if this, then that, he goes through the 165 steps of his deduction in this talk that he gave that's called The Outline of the Deductive Development of the Reciprocal System that I covered earlier, maybe about 3-4 months ago. And so you can look at those. There's about 15 videos on that. But so what he does is he builds up a theoretical universe. And then he takes the theoretical universe and compares it to the universe that the scientists have decided exist, either through their measurements or through their theories. And he kind of says, well, this item that I deduced, it doesn't come with a name or label attached to it, but, this is a photon. This is an electron. This is an atom, so he derives entities from his theoretical deductive development, and then he figures out what those entities actually correspond to in terms of labels in the real, so-called real world. Okay, so he's talking about that type of theoretical development here, and we will let him speak for himself in his own words. Such certainty is impossible in the case of any theory which contains empirical elements. Theories of this kind, a category that includes all existing physical theories, are never permanent. They are always subject to change by experimental discovery. The currently popular theory of the structure of the atom, for example, has undergone a long series of changes since Rutherford and Bohr first formulated it. And there is no assurance that the modifications are at an end. On the contrary, a general recognition of the weakness of the theory as it now stands has stimulated an intensive search for ways and means of bringing it into a closer correspondence with reality. And the current literature is full of proposals for revision. When a theory includes an empirical component, as all current physical theories do, any increase in observational or experimental knowledge about this component alters the sense of the theory, even if the wording remains the same. For instance, as pointed out earlier, some of the recently discovered phenomena in the subatomic region in which matter is converted to energy and vice versa have drastically altered the status of conventional atomic theory. The basic concept of a universe of material things to which physical science has subscribed for thousands of years requires the atom to be made up of elementary units of matter. The present theory of an atom constructed of protons, neutrons, and electrons is based on the assumption that these are the elementary particles. That is, the indivisible and unchangeable basic units of matter. The experimental finding that these particles are not only interconvertible, but also subject to creation from non-matter and transformation into non-matter has changed what was formerly a plausible theory into a theory that is internally inconsistent. In the light of present knowledge, an atom simply cannot be constructed of elementary particles of matter. Some of the leading theorists have already recognized this fact and are casting about for something that can replace the elementary particle as the basic unit. Werner Heisenberg suggests energy, quote, is the fundamental substance of which the world is made. Matter originates when the substance energy is converted into the form of an elementary particle. End quote. But he admits that he has no idea as to how energy can be thus converted into matter. This must in some way be determined by a fundamental law, he says. Heisenberg's hypothesis is a step in the right direction in that he abandons the fruitless search for the indivisible particle and recognizes that there must be something more basic than matter. He is quite critical of the continuing attempt to invest the purely hypothetical quark with a semblance of reality. Again, quoting from Heisenberg, I am afraid that the quark hypothesis is not really taken seriously today by its proponents. Questions dealing with the statistics of quarks, the forces that keep them together, the reason why the quarks are never seen as free particles, the creation of pairs of quarks inside an elementary particle, are all left more or less undefined. End quote. But the hypothesis that makes energy the fundamental entity cannot stand up under critical scrutiny. Its fatal defect is that energy is a scalar quantity, meaning that it has no direction. It's not a vector, it's a scalar, it's just a magnitude. Its fatal defect is that energy is a scalar quantity and simply does not have the flexibility that is required in order to explain the enormous variety of physical phenomena. By going one step farther and identifying motion as the basic entity, this inadequacy is overcome. As motion can be vectorial, and the addition of directional characteristics to the positive and negative magnitudes that are the sole properties of the scalar quantities opens the door to the great proliferation of phenomena that characterizes the physical universe. It should also be recognized that a theory of the composite type, one that has both theoretical and empirical components, is always subject to revision or modification. It may be altered essentially at will. The theory of atomic structure, for instance, is simply a theory of the atom, nothing else. And when it is changed, as it was when the hypothetical constituents of the hypothetical nucleus were changed from protons and electrons to protons and neutrons, no other area of physical theory is significantly affected. Even when it is found expedient to postulate that the atom or one of its hypothetical constituents does not conform to the established laws of physical science, it is not usually postulated that these laws are wrong, merely that they are not applicable in the particular case. This fact that the revision affects only a very limited area gives the theory constructors a practically a free hand in making alterations, and they make full use of the latitude that the latitude thus allowed. I know Larson can be boring, but I think I just didn't get enough sleep. Okay, back to Larson. Susceptibility to both voluntary and involuntary changes is unavoidable as long as the development of theory is still in the stage where complex concepts such as matter must be considered unanalyzable. And hence, it has come to be regarded as a characteristic of all theories. The first point to be emphasized, therefore, in beginning a description of the new system of theory based on the concept of a universe of motion, the reciprocal system, as it is called, is that this is not a composite theory of the usual type. It is purely theoretical structure which includes nothing of an empirical nature. Because all of the conclusions reached in the theoretical development are derived entirely from the basic postulates by logical and mathematical processes, the theoretical system is completely inflexible, a point that should be clearly understood before any attempt is made to follow the development of the details of the theory in the following pages. It is not subject to any change or adjustment other than correction of any errors that may have been made and extension of the theory into areas not previously covered. Once the postulates have been set forth, the entire character of the resulting theoretical universe has been implicitly defined down to the minutest detail. But just because the motion of which the universe is constructed according to the postulates has been the particular properties that have been postulated, matter, radiation, gravitation, electrical and magnetic phenomena, and so on, must exist, and their physical behavior must follow certain specific patterns. In addition to being an inflexible, purely theoretical product, that arrives at definite and certain conclusions which are in full agreement with observation, or at least not inconsistent with any definitely established facts. The reciprocal system of theory is one of general applicability. It is the first thing of its kind ever formulated, the first that derives the phenomena and relations of all subdivisions of physical activity from the same basic premises. For the first time in scientific history, there is available a theoretical system that satisfies the criterion laid down by Richard Schlegel in his statement, quote, "In a significant sense, the ideal of science is a single set of principles, or perhaps a set of mathematical equations, from which all the vast process and structure of nature could be deduced." Okay, end quote. No previous theory has covered more than a small fraction of the total field, and the present-day structure of physical thought is made up of a host of separate theories, loosely related, and at many points actually conflicting. Each of these separate theories has its own set of basic assumptions, from which it seeks to derive relations specifically applicable to certain kinds of phenomena. Relativity theory has one set of assumptions and is applicable to one kind of phenomena. The kinetic theory has an altogether different set of assumptions, which it applies to a different set of phenomena. The nuclear theory of the atom has still another set of assumptions and has a field of applicability all its own, and so on. Again, quoting Richard Feynman, instead of having the ability to tell you what the law of physics is, I have to talk about the things that are common to the various laws. We do not understand the connection between them. End quote. Furthermore, each of these many theories not only requires the formulation of a special set of basic assumptions tailored to fit the particular situation, but also finds it necessary to introduce a number of observed entities and phenomena into the theoretical structure, taking their existence for granted and accepting them as given, so far as the theory is concerned. The reciprocal system now replaces this multitude of separate theories and subsidiary assumptions with a fully integrated structure of theory derived in its entirety from a single set of basic premises. The status of this system as a general physical theory is not a matter of opinion. It is an objective fact that can easily be verified by an examination of the theoretical development. Such an examination will disclose that the development leads to detailed conclusions in all major physical fields, and that these conclusions are derived deductively from the postulates of the system, without the aid of any supplementary or subsidiary assumptions, and without introducing anything from experience. The new theoretical structure not only covers the field to which the conventional physical theories are applicable, it also gives us answers to the basic physical questions with which the theories are based on the matter concept have been unable to cope, and it extends the scope of physical theory to the point where it is capable of dealing with those recent experimental and observational discoveries in the far out regions of science that have been so baffling to those who are trying to understand them in the context of previously existing ideas. Okay, we'll stop there, and we will start up tomorrow. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.